All of this started on the morning of my 21st birthday. It was in the middle of the night, during the odd witching hours, when the road seemed like it belonged to no one but the soft glow of the street lamps above. I was there with my two best friends. We were standing in the middle of the street with one of the dumbest and least thought out ideas that we've had yet. Not far from us was a gate, draped in green cloth and adorned with signs warning against entry. Said it was private property. Beyond it was what looked like a bunch of typical industrial complex buildings. But even further beyond rose the faked mountains and spires of Disneyland. There were barbed wires at the top of the gate, but it did little to deter us. It was used as no more than a foothold as we climbed up and hopped over the gate. The other side was much larger than expected, and as soon as we were on the other side of the gate, it almost felt like we were further from the interior of the park than before. No longer could we see those tall spires rising up in the distance. Now it was all overwhelmingly white square buildings, all straight, organized, and imposing. "Damn, this reminds me of work," my friend Bill said. "We're not even in the park yet. What do you expect?" My other friend Steven responded as he scanned the area. The area behind the park was quite large. I could make out 3 separate roads, each trailing off between large multi-level buildings, some seemingly for parking, others, who knows. Steven tapped me on the shoulder and pointed ahead of us. "That's the only way that seems like it would go further into the park." "Oh, duh," I responded. "Dang, I almost want to just explore around here," Bill remarked, getting a bit further ahead of us. "Way spookier." "Hey, quiet down a bit." Steven waved at Bill, still strolling ahead. "Shouldn't there be, security around here or something?" "Oh yeah," I said. I've been embarrassed to not have even thought about security till this point. "Let's just take it a bit slow, yeah?" "Are you kidding me? There's no one here!" Bill exclaimed, even more loudly than before. The lack of security was really odd, now that it had been brought up. There were a few parked cars in the area, and it wasn't as though it was pitch black. There were lights all around the buildings that led up the road we were taking towards the interior of the park. Steven frowned at Bill's haphazard antics. "Maybe we're just lucky," I said, shrugging. But what was coming up next for us would be anything but luck. It took a bit longer than I had expected to get into the park proper. Everything had seemed so close from the street, but we had taken quite a few turns before we finally reached a gate labeled as the entrance to Galaxy's Edge. Bill pushed the gate open without hesitation and stepped through. Steven and I were a bit stunned, but we soon heard Bill urging us along from the other side. "Come on, guys, what are you waiting for? It's Star Wars land. This place is wild." I must admit, it had been a while since I'd been to Disneyland. Galaxy's Edge hadn't existed back then, and my interest pushed me through the gate next. It wasn't as though I was transported to some other world, but the polish of the new area was heavily apparent as soon as I stepped through the gate. Looking around, the spires we had seen previously from the road now blended into the background of a dusty and worn-down desert planet. "Well, it is pretty cool," I caught myself smiling. It was a bit of a relief from the nervousness prior. Steven came next, a bit more hesitantly than I, but clearly also less worried now that we had succeeded in sneaking into the park. "Woo!" Bill was already running ahead of us, jumping in, out, and onto areas that would otherwise get us kicked out of the park, had there been any employees there to command us as such. For a while, we just relaxed and took in the nighttime scenery of the deserted Galaxy's Edge. Most of the doors and entrances to the rides were all locked shut. We were able to climb atop the Millennium Falcon that sat in the middle of the main area, though. We talked, ate some snacks, and drank on top of it until we had a bit more than a light buzz. After that, it was Bill who voted we go to check out the Matterhorn next. So we packed up our stuff, hopped off the Falcon, and made our way towards Fantasyland. When I was younger, whenever my family went to Disneyland, they would spend the whole day at the park. It was always nighttime when we were leaving, but everything was still so lively and lit up. Attractions off in the distance, moving and sparkling in the night. Now, everything was dead silent. There were a few lights, like the ones along the main walkways, that were still on, but other than that, it was a completely different feeling. It felt like we owned the place, like it was all for us. It was at this peak of my enjoyment of that night, when we were halfway through Fantasyland, the Matterhorn not far out in the distance, that everything changed. Hello? Huh? Bill responded. Did one of you say something? No? Hello? There it is again. We had stopped moving. Bill was scanning the darkness ahead of us. Most of the road was lit, but off to the side where the attractions were, everything faded into blackness. Bill was slowly approaching the darkness, looking here and there. Hey, who's there? What if it's security? Steven said to me in a hushed voice. Oh shit. Hey, Bill, let's get out of here. I called to him as he was stepping over a small metal fence into one of the attractions. Please, help me. The voice had gotten audibly closer. I strained my eyes and then saw it. A silhouette of a woman not far off from where Bill was standing. Are you okay? As the woman got closer, Bill started to back up. Steven and I did likewise. Hey, Bill? I called to him. This is kind of creeping me out. Let's just go. Hold on, man. He turned his head to me as he backed into the fence. What if she... Bill! Steven shouted. She had gotten closer. Bill turned his head to be face to face with the woman. She was dressed in the costume of Elsa, standing not more than a few feet from him. Help me, please, she said again, her eyes gesturing down to her waist. There, at the costumed Elsa's waist, was a small, wriggling form. Its appendages wrapped completely around her in a way that shouldn't have been possible. It had the appearance of a small child, but with the arms stretching around the form of the woman several times over, like a boa constrictor encircling its prey. Help me. We're not allowed to end it. Tears were streaming down the woman's face. Holy crap! Bill exclaimed. Steven and I had slowly been moving down the road. Bill! I called out. Get out of there! But it was of no use. I think he genuinely wanted to help that woman, but now he was completely frozen with fear. Help! The Elsa choked out weakly. The arms of the child were now wriggling more, pressing more and more tightly into her. The hug! I can't... A loud snap crackled through the air, and the woman's form fell over herself. Bill's mouth fell open. I could see him scrambling to grab the fence behind him as he stared on, legs shaking as he attempted to mount 1 foot over the fence. In the darkness, the two forms of the woman and the child had began to meld together. There were more cracking noises, gurgling, and other such sounds that hinted at some horrible fate. Jesus! Bill was finally able to speak as he attempted to jump the fence. And then he tripped and hit the ground on the other side with an audible smack. Bill! I shouted, starting a run to him, but was immediately pulled back by Steven. Some dark shape shot across the road, and an instant later, Bill was gone with only a scream. Ah! Mark, let's go! Steven was shaking me. I slapped myself, and then we were running. The sounds of Bill's screams and an accompaniment of grotesque noises echoing out in the background. We ran and we ran. We ran past the Matterhorn, where I heard the last fading sound of Bill's cries. And then we continued running. Not much later, a shrill scream rang out through the park. Louder than anything I could have imagined. It had to have been that thing, and it wasn't long before we heard it again, even closer than it was before. Ah! Steven let out a frustrated shout. It's gaining on us. We should never have come here. We had been running for a bit by this point and had just passed the submarine voyage attraction. I looked about as another of the thing's shrieks rang through the dead air of the park. Steven, I think I've got an idea, I said as I hopped the fence into Autopia. We finally had a way out. There, at the other edge of the park, was a large field of gas-powered automobiles just waiting to be driven. Mark, this won't work. They're on rails. Steven said as we made our way to the front of all the parked cars. "Trust me," I reassured him. "I know what I'm doing. Just get in the car behind me," I said as I got into a red car at the front of the area. I could hear the thing tossing the other cars behind us aside as I looked down at the controls. "The wheel will let you turn left and right," I quickly instructed Steven. "And the pedal? That'll get us the hell out of here." And on that, I put my foot to the pedal and sent the red automobile flying down the Autopia road. The gas-powered metal box sent sparks out from under it as I kept my foot pressed against the pedal. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. Faster and faster it went as I pulled around the corners of Autopia, nearly drifting off the track. And then it happened. "Finally!" I thought with a smirk as the red car flew off the rails back into the park. I had only done this once before as a kid, but now there were no employees to stop me. I was going too fast. I could only hope that Steven had been able to follow as I sped through the park at speeds upwards of 100 miles an hour. Soon I was going down Main Street, and with a bang, I crashed out of the entrance, my car flipping through the air as I fell out of it onto the hard ground below. I could feel the flames of the car, still on fire, at my back as I picked myself up after the explosion. I looked towards Main Street. Dang. I shook my head, now standing up shakily. It must have gotten him. But then, as I turned my head to leave the park, there it was. Steven's blue car, speeding along the monorail. "Hey, buddy!" he said as he hopped the car down onto the ground in front of me. "Need a ride?" "Steven, you son of a bitch," I said, jumping into his Autopia car. Another shriek rang out from inside the park. We both looked at each other with wide eyes. "Well, let's not stick around to see that ugly thing again," Steven said, then hit the gas, and we were out of there. We tried to explain what happened to Bill to his parents, but we soon found out that he had been an orphan. Go figure. It had made things a lot easier on us. Still sucked that he was gone, though. To this day, I haven't been back to Disneyland. I don't think I ever can after what I experienced there. Maybe this is why no one is ever able to sneak into Disneyland at night. I guess you don't need security if things like that stalk the park at night.